I never thought I'd be the type of person to snoop through my husband's belongings. Yet here I was, hands trembling as I held an elegant cream-colored card I'd found tucked inside his briefcase. The handwriting was delicate, feminine, and completely unfamiliar. My name is Cassidy, and until this moment, I thought I had the perfect life. 6 months pregnant with our first child, married to a successful lawyer, and living in our dream home in Boston's Back Bay. But perfection, as it turns out, is just a carefully constructed illusion. Last night was wonderful, the note read. I can't wait to see you again. Same place next week? No signature. Just a small heart drawn in the corner. I sat on our bedroom floor, the afternoon sun streaming through the bay windows, making the diamond on my wedding ring sparkle mockingly. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd only opened Ethan's briefcase to surprise him by slipping in a sonogram picture from my appointment earlier that day. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, working late tonight. Don't wait up. Of course he was. 3rd time this week. I carefully returned the card to its hiding place, exactly as I'd found it. My hands were steadier now, but my heart was racing. The baby kicked, as if sensing my distress. It's okay, little one, I whispered, rubbing my belly. We're okay. When Ethan came home that night, I was curled up on the couch, pretending to read a pregnancy book. He kissed my forehead, his cologne different from what he'd worn that morning. How was work? I asked, keeping my voice casual. The usual. That Morrison case is killing me. He loosened his tie. How was your day? I thought about the card, about his late nights, about all the little changes I'd been ignoring. Actually, I had my ultrasound today. Would you like to see the pictures? His face flickered with something, guilt. Can we look tomorrow? I'm exhausted. Sure, I said, watching him head upstairs. Tomorrow. But tomorrow felt like a lifetime away as I sat there, one hand on my belly, the other clutching my phone. I opened my contacts and scrolled to Mia Thompson, my best friend since college. My finger hovered over her name. Sometimes you need a friend to tell you you're not crazy. Sometimes you need someone to help you figure out what to do when your perfect life starts showing cracks. I pressed call. Sunday dinner at the Monroe family mansion always felt like walking into a beautifully decorated minefield. Tonight was worse, with the weight of what I'd discovered about Ethan sitting heavy in my stomach. Or maybe that was just the morning sickness that refused to stick to mornings. Gloria Monroe stood in her pristine kitchen, stirring something that smelled divine while wearing an outfit that probably cost more than my first car. Cassidy, darling, she said, not looking up. I hope you're feeling well enough to appreciate dinner. I made it especially for you. The way she said especially made it sound like an accusation. I'm sure it's perfect, Gloria, I replied, forcing a smile. Can I help with anything? Oh no, dear. In this family, we know how to properly prepare a meal. Though I suppose you never had the chance to learn, growing up the way you did. There it was. The first dig of the evening, perfectly timed and delivered with a smile that could freeze hell. Harold, my father-in-law, walked in just then. Something smells wonderful, honey. He gave me a warm hug. How's my grandchild doing? Before I could answer, Gloria cut in. Speaking of the baby, Cassidy, have you given any thought to what we discussed about the trust fund? The family attorney mentioned it would be wise to set something up before the birth. My inheritance. Of course. It always came back to that. We haven't decided anything yet, I said carefully, watching her face tighten almost imperceptibly. Ethan appeared, kissing his mother's cheek. Mother's right, sweetheart. We should think about the future. I felt sick, and this time it wasn't the pregnancy. The way they spoke about my parents' money, as if it was already theirs to manage. During dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom. On my way back, I heard voices from Harold's study. The firm's struggling, mother. Ethan's voice, strained. If we don't get an injection of capital soon. Your wife's inheritance could solve everything, Gloria replied. We just need to handle this delicately. She's emotional now, with the pregnancy. Vulnerable. I know, but. No buts, Ethan. Family comes first. Always. I pressed my hand against the wall, steadying myself. The pieces were falling into place, the affair, the late nights, the sudden interest in my inheritance. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Mia. Got the name of that PI I mentioned. Call me when you can. I walked back to the dining room, where Gloria was serving dessert with her perfect smile. For the first time, I smiled back, genuine and bright. Sometimes the best revenge starts with playing along. Sam Reed's office looked exactly like what you'd expect from a private investigator: worn leather chairs, filing cabinets with peeling labels, and blinds that had seen better decades. But his eyes were sharp and kind as he reviewed the photos I'd brought him. The note, the late nights, the conversation about your inheritance, he said, laying everything out on his desk. Mrs. Monroe, are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes what we find isn't what we're prepared to handle. I rubbed my belly, feeling my baby kick. I need to know the truth. Not just for me anymore. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll start today. But there's something else you should know: I've dealt with the Monroe family before. That got my attention. What do you mean? Let's just say Gloria Monroe has a history of protecting her family's interests. Aggressively. He paused. Your inheritance isn't the first fortune she's tried to acquire. My phone buzzed, a text from Gloria. Lunch tomorrow? We need to discuss the baby shower. I'll take the case, Sam said, watching me stare at my phone. But whatever I find, be careful how you use it. People like Gloria Monroe don't lose gracefully. 3 days later, I met Sam in a quiet coffee shop downtown. His face told me everything before he even opened his manila envelope. Her name is Vanessa Carter, he said, sliding over several photos. She works at Ethan's firm. They meet at the Marlowe Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday. The photos showed Ethan and a stunning brunette entering and leaving the hotel. In one, they were kissing in the parking garage. The timestamp was from yesterday, right after Ethan told me he had a late court meeting. There's more, Sam said quietly. The firm is nearly bankrupt. Gloria's been moving assets around, preparing for something big. And there's a draft of paperwork to add your inheritance to the family trust. All it needs is your signature. My hands shook as I looked at the evidence of my husband's betrayal. But something else caught my eye in one of the photos: Vanessa's expression as she watched Ethan walk away. It wasn't love or triumph I saw in her face. It was guilt. I want to meet her, I said suddenly. Sam's eyebrows shot up. Mrs. Monroe. Please, call me Cassidy. And yes, I'm sure. Sometimes the best way to understand a story is to talk to everyone involved. I stood up, my decision made. Set it up. As I left the coffee shop, my phone buzzed again. Gloria, darling, have you thought more about what we discussed? The family attorney is waiting. I smiled, thinking of the photos in my purse. Oh, Gloria. You have no idea what's coming. The cafe where I met Vanessa Carter was quiet, tucked away in a part of Boston I'd never visited. She looked different in person, softer somehow, without Ethan's shadow looming over her. Her hands trembled slightly as she stirred her untouched coffee. I didn't expect you to want to meet me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect my husband to be having an affair while I'm carrying his child. The words came out sharper than I intended, making her flinch. It's not. She stopped, took a breath. It's more complicated than you think. Gloria, The cafe door chimed. Gloria Monroe walked in, her designer heels clicking against the floor. My heart stopped as her eyes found us, a predatory smile spreading across her face. Well, isn't this cozy? She pulled up a chair. Vanessa, darling, I thought we had an understanding about discretion. Vanessa's face went pale. I should go. Stay. Gloria's voice was silk-wrapped steel. Since we're all here, why don't we discuss the arrangement? Arrangement? I echoed, watching Vanessa's expression crumble. Mother, what are you doing here? Ethan appeared behind Gloria, his face a mask of confusion that quickly turned to horror when he saw me. The pieces clicked into place. You orchestrated this, I said to Gloria. The affair, the meetings at the hotel, all of it was staged. For the family, Gloria replied smoothly. We needed leverage to ensure your cooperation with the trust transfer. Though I must say, Vanessa played her part beautifully. Almost too beautifully, wouldn't you agree, Ethan? Ethan wouldn't meet my eyes. Or Vanessa's. I'm done, Vanessa suddenly announced, standing up. I never agreed to this level of manipulation. The photos, the notes, that was one thing. But this? She turned to me. I'm sorry, Cassidy. I needed the job, and Gloria promised. That's enough, Gloria cut in sharply. But I'd heard what I needed to hear. I stood up, one hand protectively over my belly. Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you, Gloria, for showing me exactly who you are. I turned to Ethan. All of you. Cassidy, wait, Ethan reached for my arm. Don't. My voice was steady. Sam Reed sends his regards, by the way. He's been very thorough in documenting everything. Including the illegal fund transfers you've been making, Gloria. Gloria's perfect composure cracked, just for a moment. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and I'm having lunch with Harold tomorrow. I wonder what he'll think about all this. As I walked out, my phone buzzed with a text from Mia. Everything okay? Need backup? I smiled, feeling stronger than I had in weeks. No, I typed back. But I could use a lawyer. Ethan was waiting when I got home, sitting in our darkened living room. His suit jacket was crumpled, his usually perfect hair disheveled. He looked broken, and for a moment, my heart ached for the man I thought I'd married. We need to talk about what happened at the cafe, he said. Do we? Seems pretty clear to me. I moved toward the stairs, one hand on the railing for support. The baby was particularly active tonight, as if sensing the tension. It's not what you think. Mother, she. He ran his hands through his hair. The firm is in trouble. Real trouble. We could lose everything. So naturally, the solution was to manipulate and gaslight your pregnant wife? I want to make it right. He stood up, approaching me slowly. Move in with my parents. Just until the baby comes. Mother's already prepared the East Wing, and with your condition. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet room. My condition? You mean being pregnant with the child you and your mother plan to use as leverage? That's not fair. What's not fair is discovering your entire marriage is a con. My voice cracked. That your husband and his mother orchestrated an affair just to. The affair wasn't orchestrated. His words hung in the air between us. Vanessa. That part was real. The room spun slightly. I gripped the railing tighter. Mother found out and decided to use it to her advantage. She threatened Vanessa's job, her reputation. She threatened everything. He reached for me. But my feelings for you. Don't. I stepped back. Don't you dare. My phone buzzed. A text from Sam, found something in the firm's records. Call immediately. At least consider moving in, Ethan pleaded. The stress isn't good for the baby. Mother's worried. Your mother is worried about losing control. I started up the stairs. I'm staying at Mia's tonight. You can't just leave. Watch me. Cassidy. His voice changed, harder now. Think about what you're doing. The family name, the connections, the lifestyle, you're throwing it all away. I turned at the top of the stairs, looking down at him. No, Ethan. I'm saving myself and my child from it. Mother won't let this go. She'll. She'll what? I pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. Sam's been very thorough. Should we discuss the offshore accounts? The forged documents? Or maybe Harold would be interested in knowing what really happened to his father's estate? Ethan's face went pale. You're bluffing. Try me. I walked to our bedroom, pulling out the pre-packed bag I'd hidden in the closet weeks ago. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies, it's about being prepared when they show their true colors. As I left, I heard Ethan on the phone. Mother? We have a problem. The Monroe mansion loomed before me, its windows glowing amber in the twilight. Sam's latest findings burned in my pocket, documents that would shatter this family's carefully constructed facade. Harold had asked to meet, saying he needed to talk. Alone. I shouldn't have come. Gloria opened the door before I could knock. Cassidy, darling. How wonderful of you to join us. Us. Not alone then. The study was full when I entered. Ethan stood by the fireplace, Harold sat heavily in his leather chair, and their family lawyer, Andrews, watched me with calculating eyes. What is this? I asked, though I already knew. An intervention of sorts, Gloria said, closing the door behind me. Mr. Andrews has prepared some papers. For the good of everyone involved. Everyone meaning you. Meaning your child, Ethan cut in. Our child deserves the Monroe name, the legacy. The lies? I pulled out Sam's documents. Like the truth about Harold's father's estate? Or the forged signatures on the trust documents? Gloria's smile didn't waver. Interesting claims. But you see, dear, while you've been playing detective, we've been having conversations with the district attorney. About your parents' accident. The room tilted slightly. What about it? New evidence has surfaced, Andrews said smoothly, suggesting the brake lines were tampered with. And your fingerprints were found on the vehicle. That's impossible. You were there that day, Gloria continued. Helping your father with the car, weren't you? Such a tragedy. Unless, of course, it wasn't an accident at all. My legs weakened. I gripped the back of a chair. You're bluffing. The DA owes us several favors, Andrews added. One phone call, and those findings become official. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Gloria's words echoed my own from days before. Sign the papers, Cassidy. Transfer your inheritance to the family trust. Move in here where we can. Support you. Or see how well your child does with a mother in prison. I looked at Harold, seeing the conflict in his eyes. But he remained silent. You have until tomorrow morning, Gloria said. Choose wisely. I fled the house, barely making it to my car before the tears came. My phone buzzed, Mia calling. Then Sam. I ignored both. They'd won. Everything I'd uncovered, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, none of it mattered against what they were willing to do. My parents' memory, my child's future, my freedom, all of it hung by a thread controlled by Gloria Monroe. The baby kicked, hard, as if protesting. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling the movement beneath. I'm sorry, little one, I whispered. I'm so sorry. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Vanessa, don't sign anything. I have something they don't know about. Meet me tonight. I stared at the message, hope and fear warring in my chest. One last chance. One last risk. What choice did I have? Vanessa's hands shook as she placed the USB drive on the cafe table. Gloria's been recording everything. Every conversation, every meeting. Including the one where she planned your parents' accident investigation. My heart stopped. She recorded herself committing a crime? Gloria records everything. It's how she maintains control. But she never expected her own recordings would be her downfall. Dawn broke as I walked into the Monroe mansion one last time. They were all waiting in the study, Gloria, Ethan, Harold, and Andrews. The papers sat ready on the desk. I was beginning to worry you wouldn't come, Gloria said, sliding the documents toward me. I placed the USB drive next to the papers. Before I sign, I thought we should all listen to something. Gloria's face flickered. What is that? Your greatest hits collection. I pressed play on my phone, connected to the drive. Gloria's voice filled the room. The DA won't look too closely. Plant the evidence, suggest the daughter's involvement. It's a simple solution to our inheritance problem. Harold stood slowly. Gloria, what is this? It's nothing, dear. Clearly doctored. Another recording cut her off. Ethan isn't yours, Harold. He never was. But you gave him the Monroe name, and that's all that matters. The color drained from Harold's face. Ethan stumbled back like he'd been struck. Mother? Ethan's voice cracked. Everything I did was for this family, Gloria said, her composure cracking. For you, Ethan. For our legacy. By destroying mine? I stepped forward. By threatening to frame me for my parents' death? You don't understand what it takes to protect a family name, Gloria snapped. No, Harold said quietly. You don't understand what family means at all. Andrews gathered his papers quickly. I should go. Stay, I said. The police will want to talk to everyone involved in the conspiracy. Gloria laughed, but it sounded hollow. You're bluffing. Like you were bluffing about my parents' accident? I touched my belly, feeling my baby move. The police are already outside. Sam's been working with them for weeks. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Ethan, Gloria pleaded. Tell them. Tell them we did it for you. But Ethan was staring at Harold, his world visibly crumbling. Dad, Harold turned away, shoulders slumped. Gloria lunged for the USB drive, but I was faster. As she grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails drawing blood, the study door burst open. Police flooded in, followed by Sam. Gloria Monroe, an officer began, "You're under arrest." I watched them lead her away, her threats echoing through the mansion. Not for revenge anymore, but for justice. For truth. For the family I needed to protect, the one growing inside me. 3 months later, I sat in my new apartment's nursery, folding tiny clothes while the autumn sun painted the walls gold. The Monroe mansion had made headlines for weeks: Gloria's arrest, the firm's collapse, the scandal that rocked Boston's elite. But here, in this quiet space, none of that seemed to matter. A knock at the door surprised me. Harold stood there, looking older but somehow lighter. I hope I'm not intruding, he said, holding a wrapped package. I gestured him in, watching as he took in the half-finished nursery. The walls were yellow, neutral, hopeful. I found this in the attic, he said, handing me the package. Inside was a handmade quilt, delicate and worn. It was mine, as a baby. Before Gloria. Before everything. Harold, I can't. Please. He sat heavily in the rocking chair. I've been thinking about family. About choices. I chose to ignore things for years, telling myself it was for the best. For family. The quilt was soft in my hands, speaking of a simpler time. Ethan asked to see you, he said quietly. I know. Mia told me. He's starting therapy. Trying to understand. Harold trailed off. Sometimes the hardest part isn't losing family, but realizing what family should have been all along. My baby kicked, strong and insistent. Harold smiled at my instinctive touch to my belly. Gloria's sentencing is next week, he said. I won't be there. Some endings are better observed from a distance. I nodded, understanding completely. The trust fund paperwork came through, I said. Everything's in the baby's name now, protected. Sam helped set it up. Good. Harold stood slowly. You know, I always wanted grandchildren. I just never imagined. You'll always be welcome here, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. The baby should know at least one good thing that came from the Monroe family. He hugged me carefully, and I felt his tears on my shoulder. As he left, I noticed Vanessa waiting by a car across the street. She and Ethan had both turned state's evidence against Gloria. Some betrayals, it seems, lead to truth. My phone buzzed, Mia, reminding me about tomorrow's Lamaze class. Next to it was a text from Sam, final paperwork filed. It's done. I placed the quilt in the crib, its worn patches telling stories of generations past. My baby would have their own story, untainted by the weight of false legacies or toxic family bonds. Sometimes the family you choose, or the one you build, matters more than the one you're born into. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies, but about building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. I touched my belly again, feeling my child move beneath my hand. We were going to be just fine.